I apologize for the crass example I'm about to use here, but if I was in a bathroom and I ran out of toilet paper and there happened to be a national flag hanging off the wall, so in my case it would be a Canadian flag, or for my neighbors to the south, an American flag, why wouldn't I use that flag to wipe my ass? What is it about that flag that makes it different from another piece of material like, say, my sock or my shirt? After all, a flag is nothing more than a piece of fabric with ink and a pattern on it. When you think about it deep down, a flag is nothing more than a piece of cloth. The meaning that we attribute to a flag is what gives it its value. But that value is not inherent at all. This is a decision that we make to attribute that value to that piece of cloth. Nationalism is actually a great example for this because it does show the impermanency of the meaning we give to symbols. For example, I'm a Canadian. I'm from Ontario. Okay, so my flag is the Canadian flag. If Quebec were to separate tomorrow, and Quebec is literally 7 minutes from my house, okay? If they were to separate tomorrow, would the Canadian flag still symbolize and mean the same thing that it did before that? Or, another example would be if the state of New York, the closest state to me, were to amalgamate to Canada, then would the flag still mean the same thing? So in this instance, and as you'll see in the other instances I'll bring forward, the symbol tries to create permanency in what is clearly an impermanent and ever-changing world. Now, of course, the second most obvious case of symbolism comes with religion. I brought here a copy of my Bible. Now, same scenario. If I was in a toilet and I ran out of paper, I see perfectly good paper right here. Why wouldn't I use that? What's the difference between using that and, say, like a Mark Twain book or a King Arthur book or whatever it is? Well, the difference is, once again, that people have attributed much more value to this thing than to a regular book. How about this thing? The Qur'an. You know, imagine if I was starting to wipe my butt with this. But why? Why? Does it make sense? Again, people think that this and many other religious texts solidly explain the world in a way that it can never change. These books apparently contain all the answers. They're a symbol that is that's supposed to represent permanency again in an impermanent world. Finally, my last example of this, and I think the most ingrained within our society, is this. Sorry, my American friends, this is actually not Monopoly money. This is a Canadian $20 bill. If I was to cut this right now or burn it up, people would be like, yo, what are you doing, man? Like, why are you doing this? But what is this? This is a piece of paper with ink on it. Like, money does actually grow on trees. This is paper, you know? So, but it's the symbology, it's the meaning that we give to this that gives it its value. This really is worth nothing. Especially today. Apparently back in the day there was a gold standard, blah, blah, blah. But today this is worth nothing. It's a piece of paper. So again, the problem here is that these symbols create an illusion of permanency in an impermanent world. And what I am here to do on my channel is to try and promote reality. You have to realize, we have to come to terms with the fact that these symbols are nothing more than creations of our mind. And we have the control and we have the power to change the meaning that we attribute to these things. For the past 50 years and for the foreseeable 50 years in the future, there's this war going on in Palestine, Israel, whatever. This is all based on the symbolic belief that Jews should be in Israel. These symbols have extremely negative real-world effects that really affect all of us, and it isn't necessary. When we come to terms with the fact that the world is impermanent and constantly changing. You know, I've always found it funny, the idea of a holy land, when the land itself shifts through the movement of tectonic plates and whatnot. You know, the earth itself is in constant movement and evolution and change. So how can a land be sacred if it's constantly moving? You know, what if it becomes another land later, or it separates, or whatever? What makes it sacred? What makes it sacred is our belief in it. We cannot lose sight of the fact of what is important here. We need to preserve the earth. We need to accept that we are all humans at the core, and that we are all the same, and that we are essentially living for the lives of our children. When the false symbols that we create work against that, it is time to abandon them.